presented by Wendy's. Welcome to Saturday Showcase presented by 5 Hour Energy. The home finale at the Carrier Dome between North Carolina and Syracuse, with a couple of Hall of Fame coaches and some real star power in the building. Tom Brady, Julian Edelman, Jimmy Fallon sitting courtside to see the Orange take on the Tar Heels. And welcome everybody to Syracuse. Doug Sherman along with Corey Alexander. Glad you could join us here this afternoon. Syracuse, are they in or are they out? They've been walking that tightrope for weeks. Are they still in consideration for a possible spot in the big dance, Corey?
Well, first, I appreciate you recognizing my star power. Secondly, yes, they are in consideration still, but they have a lot of work to do in the remaining regular season. They have to win out these 3 games in ACC play, starting here this afternoon with the Tar Heels on their floor. Also, would most likely need at least 2 wins making it to the semifinals of the ACC tournament in Greensboro. But business at hand, you've got to take care of the Tar Heels, who want to be the spoiler. Used to being the spoilee, now the spoiler.
Barama Sidibe wins the tip for the Orange in their home whites, and Joe Girard III will have the basketball first. This is Elijah Hughes, who leads the ACC in scoring per game. Marek Dolezaj gets it to Buddy Boeheim. We're going to keep an eye on Boeheim's foot has just come out of his shoe.
And that is the ankle that he did turn earlier in the week.
And so the turnover turns into a breakaway dunk for Leaky Black. And as you allude to, the last time Syracuse played on Wednesday at Pittsburgh, Buddy Boeheim turned his left ankle and didn't return. Now, he didn't practice at all until yesterday. Did okay in practice, but clearly something's amiss to start this game.
Well, and there was one of the things I was paying attention to on his first catch, and you saw his face grimace a bit. And it's one of the things as a basketball player, as an athlete, you really don't know how you feel until you actually get out in the midst of competition. And as we look at the Syracuse starting 5, Dolezaj playing great basketball and rocking the goatee.
Our starting lineups brought to you by T. Rowe Price.
And Coach Boeheim wondering why there's no foul on that possession as Dolezaj attacks the basket. And as usual, we have a large crowd, to say the least, here at the Dome for the alumni game.
Sidibe coming off a huge game with a chance for 3. Wednesday against Pittsburgh, Sidibe went for 13 points, 10 rebounds, 5 steals, 4 blocks. Syracuse needs him to be active at both ends of the floor.
They really do, and not only from the standpoint of his rebounding and his defensive effort, but also finishing at the rim and completing the 3-point play. Those bonuses really give an option, and it takes some of the pressure off of the perimeter players for the Orange.
There's a look at the starting 5 for the Tar Heels in their Carolina blue. In recent years, it's been all Carolina in this series. North Carolina's won the last 8 times, facing Syracuse. Going to have to try and figure out that zone, which is always a challenge.
Well, a nice play there by Cole Anthony getting inside the zone, but Garrison Brooks unable to finish on the lob. But that's one of the things we talked to Coach Williams about. He will rotate different players on the inside of that zone as North Carolina gets out in transition. But that's going to be an offensive foul on Garrison Brooks, trying to shield off Dolezaj and keeping him away from being able to contest that shot.
And the last time Roy Williams brought the Tar Heels to Syracuse 2 years ago, Theo Pinson put on a clinic how to attack the zone from the middle. This Carolina team doesn't have Theo Pinson, doesn't have anybody who naturally would go in there, you would think, but we will find out. Girard rattles home the jump shot for 2.
And you would imagine that this is a game that Joe Girard III would look forward to playing against when you consider the opponent, Cole Anthony, who is New York City. Girard, of course, the New York State Player of the Year last year, once Cole Anthony decided to transfer to Oak Hill Academy. But I'm sure Joe Girard has had to look up at Anthony many times and recognizing when you're looking at one of the top players in high school and looking for an opportunity to get to go up against him.
Buddy Boeheim misses on the pull-up. Here's that matchup. Anthony out front of the zone. Brandon Robinson playing through ongoing ankle trouble. Finds Baycott, who missed on the spin. Girard for three. And the ball bounces out of bounds. Back to the Tar Heels. Here's Joe Girard III, the freshman from Glens Falls, New York, listed at 6'1", 181 pounds, and he's been on fire lately. Last 5 games, averaging 19 per, including a 30-point outburst.
Shooting the basketball much better. 13 of 30 from 3 in the last 4 games. And speaking of shooting the ball better, Brandon Robinson hasn't been shooting the ball better. He's a young man who was shooting it very well before injuring his ankle and missing 3 games. Ever since, 3 for 15 from beyond the three-point arc, and he's one of those guys that's really a game-time decision from this point on. That ankle issue hasn't gone away. It's been continuing to bother him, and you see it in his play.
Girard will try again. This time he finds the range. Carolina's the best rebounding team in the league, and as we saw in the last possession, sometimes their best offense is just throw it up on the rim and go get it.
Well, they normally play with 2 bigs, and you had that in this game with Garrison Brooks as well as Armando Baycott. When they get a shot at the rim, oftentimes they're going to be able to come up with it. And Garrison Brooks actually tossing the glasses aside on that possession. Felt as though he got hit in the face, but didn't want to stop playing. But playing with that foul early, has to be careful guarding Dolezaj.
Well, he got the block shot there. Here comes Cole Anthony, trying to beat Boeheim to the bucket, and he lays it in.
Nice finish there by Cole Anthony, putting it high on the glass, avoiding the shot blocker. Recognizes Sidibe is on the way.
Tied at 8. And in his 9th game back from injury, do you see anything different about Cole Anthony than we saw back in November and December?
Well, I can tell you right now that he's not as explosive as, the real Cole Anthony, as I like to call him. And he wasn't that before he stopped playing in that last game. Of course, he played before the injury at Virginia. He actually injured the knee earlier in the year as Dolezaj picks up his first. But Anthony not quite back to his original self, nowhere near as explosive. But right now, his bucket on the fast break ties this game at 8.
And welcome to the Carrier Dome in Syracuse, New York. Early in this ACC showdown between North Carolina and Syracuse. With Corey Alexander, I'm Doug Sherman. We've had a good start to the ball game on both ends. Syracuse jumped out early, but led by Cole Anthony, the Heels coming right back.
Well, we got 2 of the best freshman point guards in the ACC, Joe Girard III, Cole Anthony going at it early. 2 guys from the state of New York, and I'm sure a little bit of bragging rights on this game and getting these 2 teams a win. But Syracuse right now, a very important game for the Orange as you look at their tournament resume, and they continue to try to find a way to get into the NCAA tournament. They're going to need to win out throughout the regular season in the ACC and also do some damage in Greensboro at the ACC tournament. But yet, the Orange don't feel as though their hopes are all the way dashed.
So far in the game, Joe Girard has 5 points, Barama Sidibe 3, and for North Carolina, Anthony with 2. Armando Baycott at the free throw line gets 1 out of 2. He now has 3 points. And then Leaky Black with 4 points. And UNC in front, 9-8. And here is Elijah Hughes, averaging on the year 18.8 points per game. Picks up his dribble. Dangerous pass. Finds its way to Boeheim. Boeheim leans in and gets the roll.
And with that basket, Buddy Boeheim surpassing his production in comparison to the game in Pittsburgh where he was injured in the first half but scoreless at that point, and it has to feel good for Buddy to see the basketball go through.
Hey, you recognize those 3 guys sitting across the court from us? Tom Brady, Julian Edelman, and Jimmy Fallon.
Star power in effect here at the Carrier Dome this afternoon.
Now, should we say former Patriot Tom Brady?
No, can't say that yet.
Although when he was introduced before the game, you know we're in Buffalo Bills country here in central New York. He was roundly booed by all the Bills fans in the building.
We will say that Jimmy Fallon definitely received the greatest ovation of the three of them introduced here.
No doubt. Fallon's an upstate New Yorker from Saugerties. Leaky Black kicks the ball.
And I respect that. I like that from the Orange Faithful. If you're a Bills fan, stick with your Bills. You're not gonna cheer for Tom Brady if he comes to Buffalo to play the Bills. Don't cheer for him when he comes to Syracuse.
Oh, and they're not gonna. Here goes Gerard. Had a shot, turned it down to Boeheim. Long two. And Baycott pulls down the rebound. North Carolina has lost 7 of its last 8, but they did win their last time out Tuesday against North Carolina State, and we witnessed, Corey, this morning during shoot-around, this is a Tar Heels team that's still very much together.
They are, and they had a great spirit about them in their shoot-around. This morning, another offensive rebound by Brandon Robinson in the dump-off to find Garrison Brooks. But this is a team that understands the task ahead. They know that their only chance of playing in the NCAA tournament is to win the ACC tournament. It's been that type of year for North Carolina, but yet the only thing that Roy Williams asked of this team is to simply get better every time out, and he feels as though they've done that.
Boeheim with consecutive buckets, back to a 1-point game. I'll tell you what, if North Carolina gets to Greensboro 10 days from now as the 15th seed, which is quite possible, they'll be the most dangerous 15 seed in ACC tournament history.
They may be the most dangerous 15 seed in any tournament history when you consider this team has played well enough to win a lot of games. They've lost so many games at the end, many of those at the buzzer, but still a dangerous group, especially when you consider their ability to offensive rebound and put points on the board in the second chance fashion.
Robinson knocks the ball away. Boeheim double teamed, and the foul is called. Robinson and Brooks had him bottled up, but B-Rob is called for the reach in. Well, the Tar Heels on the year 11-17. They got off to such a great start, ranked as high as 5th in the country. They beat Oregon early, but then the injuries have just piled up and things have gone sideways.
They really have. But honestly, I think that pick to finish second was too high for this team. I'm not sure their talent level was at that point, but this is a team coming in that you thought would be in the top 5 or 6 in the ACC and still a tournament team this year as Elijah Hughes knocks down the corner 3. But when you look at North Carolina, injuries to Brandon Robinson to start the season, and then you consider Cole Anthony's injury where he missed 11 games. So many guys have missed games, 88 games coming into this one, missed by injury by the Tar Heels, and it has really cost them, especially when you consider the fact that they've lost so many close games on a record pace for Roy Williams in this Tar Heel program.
It really is remarkable. This is the worst season for North Carolina basketball since all the way back in 2001, 2002, back when Matt Doherty was the head coach. Garrison Brooks with the hammer.
And that was great execution against the zone by the Tar Heels. 2 screens to get Cole Anthony into the middle. As soon as the help steps up, he's able to toss it up to Garrison Brooks for the finish.
Hughes into the lane. Sidibe had a shot. Armando Baycott, the only Tar Heel who has played in every game this year, now he is hobbling back up the court. Off the bench, Christian Keeling. He has been instant offense over the last 8 games for UNC.
He really has. He's been their savior considering Brandon Robinson's injuries over the last few weeks as the officials call the timeout to allow Baycott to get out of the game. But North Carolina executing on the offensive end against the zone, the 2 screens, allowing Cole Anthony to get into the middle of the paint. The nice finish by Garrison Brooks to give the Heels the 2-point lead.
Today's game is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy and by Pizza Hut. The number 44 means an awful lot to the folks here at Syracuse University, both in football and in basketball. And that man right there, John Wallace, is the honoree of the day. He at halftime will have his uniform number 44 retired and hung up to the rafters here at the Dome.
I'm going to go as far as to say that there is no other university that has a number that is as synonymous as with greatness as is that number. When you start talking about Jim Brown, let's say, okay, the great in two sports of its own, but then you add Derek Coleman on the basketball court, John Wallace, Danny Shades. I mean, and who am I missing? Ernie Davis?
Ernie Davis, the Heisman Trophy winner, as well as Floyd Little. Those are the big three in football, and we didn't even mention Marty Burns, who was a great player in basketball here in the 70s, went on to have a nice NBA career with the Indiana Pacers. So it's so big on this campus, the number 44, that years ago, Corey, they changed both the zip code to include 44, and they changed the phone exchange to be 443 as opposed to 423. That's how big the number 44 is.
That is impressive. I mean, Ernie Davis, Derek Coleman, and again, I'm not a Syracuse alum as you are, but when you put Jim Brown in the mix, it doesn't get any greater than that.
And you mentioned he was a two-sport star. He actually played 4 sports here. Greatest lacrosse player ever, greatest football player ever, but he also played basketball in the 50s for Syracuse and also track and field.
Yeah, I believe we got the offensive foul on Cole Anthony on that possession. And he was actually getting rid of the basketball. And with this North Carolina team, depth is not their strength. So when you consider foul trouble in this game, that's one of the things you got to keep your eye on.
Quincy Guerrier's come off the Syracuse bench. Boeheim bounces that ball out of bounds. Third Syracuse turnover.
But one of the things you can see early in this game, and I'm sure it's been a conversation between Roy Williams and Cole Anthony. Cole Anthony wants to push the tempo. As Keeling is able to knock down another shot, that will be a 2. But Christian Keeling has continued his hot shooting.
And Corey, you know what it's like, what Keeling has experienced the last 3 weeks. Just kind of an awakening. The confidence that he plays with now you just didn't see for the first couple of months.
Well, one of the things that Roy Williams has asked him to do is just go play basketball. I mean, you're talking about a grad transfer, a young man that knows what he's doing. As that's his second offensive foul, the Tar Heels have stepped up and seen players from the Orange attacking the paint out of control and done a great job stepping in and getting the offensive foul.
Our full day of college basketball is highlighted by these 2 big games. Up next, this one's a sonic blockbuster. Number 7 Duke taking on Virginia. And then 9th-ranked Maryland leads the Big Ten by 2 games. It'll host number 24 Michigan State. Both games are on ESPN and the ESPN app, so you can watch anywhere. Cole Anthony for 3. Timeout, Syracuse.
Well, we talked about playing the spoiler right now. You've seen North Carolina firing on all cylinders. 7-point lead here at the Dome.
Back at the Carrier Dome, North Carolina on a 7-0 run with the basketball. Keeling. Back tap, a Carolina staple, continues the possession.
And Carolina snapping the basketball around the perimeter, forcing this Syracuse zone to try to react. And one of the things coming into this game, if you're Syracuse, you look at, well, this has not been a great shooting North Carolina team, but the Tar Heels off to a hot start here offensively.
Bryson Goodine off the Syracuse bench, misfires on his first attempt. There's the middle of that zone we talk so much about. Who for Carolina can make the Orange pay on that possession? It was Justin Pierce.
But the difference is when you consider the fact that Cole Anthony and Christian Keeling have both knocked down three-pointers in the last couple possessions. Brandon Robinson on the floor as well. The defenders on the wings of that zone don't want to help, which is going to leave that middle wide open. And when you get the basketball in there, guys like Justin Pierce are going to have their opportunities to make plays.
11 unanswered points for the Tar Heels. Through the hands of Brooks. And the 6'10 junior, Marek Dolezaj, trying to go coast to coast. And it's an offensive foul.
And a third offensive foul for the Orange, attacking the basket. And right now, Carolina having his way.
Kevin, pretty impressive indeed. With Corey Alexander, I'm Doug Sherman back at the Carrier Dome with some star power. Jimmy Fallon seems to have his own rooting section, his own fan section here at the Dome. Boy, how about the Tar Heels? There's plenty of people in the building as well wearing Carolina blue, and they are watching the Tar Heels on a 14-0 run.
And although much further north than where he's from, Cole Anthony feeling right at home in his home state right now, getting off to a great start here at the Dome.
Didn't the New York City native say it was feeling kind of Canadian up here today? It is a bit chilly here in central New York today, 27 degrees right now. And that'll describe Syracuse's offense as well. They've been stuck on 17 for a while.
But you talked about the looseness and the fact that this North Carolina team has stuck together. These guys have enjoyed being teammates this year. Roy Williams told us that there's been no bickering, there's been no arguing. It's just a team that's trying to get better and trying to find a way to win games as they near the end of their season. And they know that the light is getting dimmer at the end of the tunnel.
Another Syracuse turnover. This time it's Hughes. Robinson able to save it. Well, you know how it goes, Corey. You've got a team here in North Carolina that's won only 4 times in conference play. I mean, they basically went almost winless the month of January and haven't done much winning since. Lob to Pierce, no. And usually those teams wind up being fractured as we get to late February, but that's clearly not the case with UNC.
No, it's not. And seeing them today, a team that's getting along very well. And really, they haven't had a chance to gel because there's been so many injuries as Keeling knocks down another 3. Beautiful find from Cole Anthony attacking the paint, and Jim Boeheim has seen enough as his team here at their alumni game in front of so many that have come to see the Orange find themselves down 16 here in the first half.
Well, it should be no surprise that Christian Keeling can score. You know, in 3 years at Charleston Southern, he scored a total of 1,666 points. So he can fill it up when given the opportunity and when he's feeling right.
One of the things that Carolina's been through this year, it's been some tough losses.
Well, indeed, on January 22nd, the Tar Heels lost to the Hokies in double OT. Tyrese Radford with a game winner with less than a second to go. Then on February 8th, Wendell Moore of Duke scored on a putback as time expired in overtime to give Duke a thrilling win. A week later, a three-pointer by Thomas Woldetensae with under a second to go lifted Virginia, and then it was Nate Laszewski for Notre Dame. And so that's kind of the way the season has gone for Carolina. They got 2 things, 2 narratives. Tough losses late and all the injuries, but they still feel like there's time to write a 3rd narrative.
It is. 9 of their last 13 opponents have scored game-tying or game-winning points in the last 27 seconds. That's the heartbreakers that North Carolina has dealt with this year, and they've also given up a number of double-digit leads. So if you're the Orange right now, you don't give up on it. You continue to find ways to attack North Carolina, because this is a team that will let you back into ball games.
Andrew Platek has come into the game. He is from Guilderland, New York. Has a big cheering section. He's made the 2-hour drive from the Albany area. Buddy Boeheim, tough shot, able to get the roll. Well, after a 6-minute drought, Back-to-back buckets by Buddy Boeheim.
And Buddy Boeheim is developing as a basketball player, not just a shooter anymore. We've seen him go to the mid-range, knock down buckets in two-point range, and continues to develop.
In and out for Robinson. Just over 4 minutes remaining in the half. Syracuse down 12. Sidibe denied, but a foul is called on Pierce. Timeout here in the Carrier Dome. Coach Williams' team up by a dozen. ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Wendy's. Back inside the Carrier Dome, North Carolina and Syracuse. During this timeout, this young man did not show himself very well.
And I had a similar reaction as to Jimmy Fallon, like, wait a minute, do some push-ups, something before you go out there, because the one thing you can't do is try to bounce it in.
No, and then Julian Edelman starts heckling him. Tom Brady just with a smile. I want to know why Brady doesn't have his John Wallace jersey on yet.
Well, Brady played in this building before.
He did.
Yeah, so, you know, it's one thing to show up and support, but it's something completely different to put the jersey on. I can understand that. Brady played in here for the Big Blue.
His senior year back in the fall of '99, Michigan came into the Dome, and he got the start, but was replaced after one quarter by Drew Henson, who wound up being the star of the game for Big Blue. Pressure broken, ball into the hands of Platek.
And one thing we haven't spoke much about, because Syracuse has actually played better, but Mark Dolezaj picking up his third foul here in the first half, and going to have to miss the remainder of this first half. And that's one of the things that Jim Boeheim has talked about with him. He has to stay out of foul trouble and stay on the floor. They're a different team with him on the court, but give the Orange credit. They've been able to respond with a 6-0 run since the timeout after North Carolina got out to the 17-point lead.
Yeah, Corey, as you know, that's been one of the stories for Syracuse. Their three bigs in the rotation have habitually been in foul trouble throughout the season, and how well can they work around it?
You know, but it's interesting that he almost wants for Sidibe to get into foul trouble because they know he's being aggressive. Speaking of aggressive, Buddy Boeheim has been the guy for the Orange here in the first half, single-handedly making this a single-digit game.
Shot clock at 5. Cole Anthony rises up, around and out. Boeheim's been feeling it. Trying again for three, front rimmed it. Here comes Carolina with under 3 minutes remaining in the half. Brooks draws a crowd, finds Pierce, but it's taken away. Elijah Hughes. Hughes off the hesitation, tough shot. And the foul against North Carolina. Tonight's NBA Saturday primetime game has the Celtics hosting the Rockets. Our coverage tips with The Jump at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on ABC. And you can always watch both on the ESPN app from anywhere. You see Kemba Walker there. He is kind of an inspiration to this North Carolina team, right?
Specifically to Cole Anthony, who they recognize their only way into the NCAA tournament is to win the ACC tournament. Earlier today, I asked Cole, I said, do you remember watching Kemba Walker in 2011 at UConn? He said, absolutely. And I asked him, I said, can you do that? And he said, there's no other way.
Brooks, blocked, Sidibe. 11 straight for Syracuse. Gerard turned it over. Anthony, end to end. Absorbed contact with no call. Now a chance for three for Brooks.
Another offensive rebound For North Carolina, Garrison Brooks putting in the 2, an opportunity for the three-point play to temporarily quiet the crowd here.
Corey, coming up on the Jeep halftime report, we'll catch up on an ACC shocker earlier this afternoon, plus a big upset in the Big 12. And, of course, our first half stats and highlights, which will include runs for each team. Carolina with the first big run. Syracuse now on its own run. Under 2 minutes remaining in the half. Boeheim is fouled by Keelan. Now, we saw in the first couple of minutes of the game, Buddy Boeheim, who's playing on a gimpy left ankle, which he turned their last time out. He lost his shoe, and you wondered if he could play on, but he has shown in the last 5-6 minutes he's okay.
And we've seen the same thing from Elijah Hughes after only playing 3 minutes in the NC State game, coming back and going for 25 points at Florida State. So, you know, not a deep team when you consider the Orange, but a resilient group who refuse to allow their teammates to go out there on the floor. They're willing to play through injuries. And according to the way this one has gone, Buddy Boeheim having a similar performance as Hughes had against Florida State, getting off to a great start here in the first half.
Boeheim's got 13 points to lead all scorers. Offensive foul.
And that's going to be 2 on Cole Anthony here in the first half. And both of his have been offensive fouls. And you see Anthony trying to swing through. Elijah Hughes stepping over. I'm not sure everyone's going to agree that that was an offensive foul.
Certainly he doesn't. But well, instead he takes a seat with his second personal.
Well, I mean, it's really not up for debate as Boeheim backs in Keeling and is able to finish over the top and runs back, just letting the Syracuse crowd know he's too small.
Boeheim 6'6". Keeling listed at 6'3". Out of bounds. It'll stay at this end. Now, we have seen from Buddy Boeheim big offensive explosions in halves this year. How about what he did against Georgetown when he dropped 25 against the Hoyas in the second half alone?
Well, he can get hot and do it quickly. And he's done that here in the first half to make this a game once again as Platek chases an offensive rebound. And I believe he's going to be able to shoot 2 free throws just on his effort alone, trying to track down 2 points.
Second foul on Sidibe, who takes a look up at the big screen to see if indeed he agrees. So Andrew Platek will head to the free throw line. 6'4" junior who had a real good 5 minutes in their last game in the first half against North Carolina State. Provided great energy against the Wolfpack.
Platek with 19 friends and family members here in the building watching him play close to home. As you mentioned, a 2.5-hour drive. And you've seen a spirited effort from Platek. This is probably the best they've seen him in a while.
Sidibe sticks it back in. You see, Sidibe is already nearly at a double-double. 9 points, 10 rebounds.
And Roy Williams not happy about that. He felt as though that was the exact same call that Cole Anthony was getting the offensive foul on that Buddy Boeheim used to get to the rim right in front of the officials. And Roy Williams still having conversations regarding it.
Final possession of the half for Syracuse. 10 seconds to go. Elijah Hughes looking to create off the bounce. Working on Leaky Black. It's knocked away out of bounds. Syracuse will keep with 3.2 on the clock. Sidibe tried to throw it down and he was fouled. We have not seen this sort of aggression in Sidibe in 3 years.
Well, we were talking about, you know, where Dolezaj, Coach Boeheim wants to keep Dolezaj out of foul trouble, but he doesn't really feel as though Bourama Sidibe is being aggressive if he's not in foul trouble. And that's one of the things he actually played the first half of the Georgia Tech game here at home with 0 fouls, and Boeheim was not happy with his activity and the way that he played in that first half. Sidibe actually ended up fouling out of that game, all 5 fouls in the second half, but yet a very productive performance for him.
Fun first half here in Syracuse. The Tar Heels went on an extended run first, but the Orange have pulled right back into it. Led by Buddy Boeheim, 15 points. Garrison Brooks with 11 as they head to the locker room here at the Dome. You're watching ESPN's Road to Champ Week presented by Wendy's. Welcome back to Saturday Showcase presented by 5 Hour Energy. Moments ago, the number 44 raised to the rafters here at the Carrier Dome to commemorate one of the all-time greats in Syracuse history, John Wallace, who had a senior season for the ages, basically single-handedly taking the Orange all the way to the national championship game where they lost to the Kentucky Wildcats back in '96. Wonderful moment here under the Teflon roof of the Carrier Dome. Syracuse trailing North Carolina 40-35. With Corey Alexander, I'm Doug Sherman. Welcome back. And when was the last time you saw a game where one team, Carolina, scored 17 unanswered points, that was immediately answered by Syracuse rattling off 11 in a row?
You don't see it often, but it's also something that when you consider these two teams and how they've been inconsistent, it's up and down all year, it's not surprising at all to see this happen.
Let's take a look at our highlights. They are brought to you by Guinness, made of more.
Well, early in the game, it was North Carolina attacking the interior. Cole Anthony finding Garrison Brooks multiple times, getting into the painted area, and North Carolina was flexing its muscle until Buddy Boeheim single-handedly brought the Orange back in the game, knocking down the three, and then calling Christian Keeling his little buddy going back down the floor.
Carolina with the basketball to begin the second half. Pierce gets the start along with Brooks, Robinson, Anthony, and Leaky Black. Syracuse in that zone with Boeheim and Girard out front, Hughes, Sidibe, and Dolezaj underneath. Pierce blocked by Sidibe. What a game he has been playing. Brooks off the nice feed puts it in. He's got 13 points.
And great presence of mind by Garrison Brooks right there to be able to get that shot off before the defense can come over, just flipping it toward the basket. Showing great touch.
Dolezaj trying to go to work. First bucket of the day for the 6'10 junior from Slovakia.
And Armando Bacot not starting the second half. We saw him go out due to injury early in this game. Justin Pierce getting the second half start. And we'll see how that affects North Carolina, especially on the glass as Cole Anthony knocks down another three. And he's shooting the basketball extremely well now. 11 points for Anthony here, who's been very good. Had to sit the end of that first half with the second foul. He's had a strong performance here in the Dome.
Hughes blocked by Black, out of bounds. Syracuse will keep. North Carolina has used 9 different starting lineups this season. Roy Williams having to shuffle the deck again here for the start of the second half. And again, as I mentioned in the first half, Bacot's the only guy who has played every game so far this year for the Tar Heels. This now the 29th game of the year, but that doesn't mean he hasn't been dinged up at times throughout.
He's been dinged up a number of times this year. He's had a concussion and a severely sprained ankle that he actually was able to play through. But North Carolina now going small and putting Garrison Brooks on the interior, surrounded by 4 guards. Christian Keeling playing so well. Roy Williams getting him on the floor early in this game, and he'll actually play along the baseline, which will make it extremely difficult for the Syracuse zone to be able to find it.
From the corner, that's a 3-ball for Brandon Robinson.
But that's what you do. Now you have 4 shooters on the floor, guys that are capable of knocking down the three, alongside Garrison Brooks. And Garrison Brooks, who commands so much attention when he catches the basketball in the paint, will have his options of shooters around him.
Long rebound. Here comes Robinson. Fancy pass to Keelan. Out to Black. Turns down the shot. Gets it back. Puts it up. And there the Tar Heels crashing that offensive glass. Sidibe comes away with it. Here comes Hughes. Fancy shot. Plus the foul.
Great recognition by Elijah Hughes in transition. Knowing Cole Anthony has 2 fouls, Anthony does not want to foul him and attacks Cole Anthony one-on-one. Anthony somewhat getting out of the way so he doesn't get the foul, but Brandon Robinson coming in and just adding insult to injury. Nice finish there by Hughes and using the rim as a shield. An opportunity for the three-point play.
Well, the East Carolina University transfer has struggled with his jump shot today. Only 1 of 5 from beyond the arc. He completes the three-point play after getting Robinson to commit his 3rd foul. And we've also received word that Baycott is not going to come back for Carolina. He is on the bench, still in uniform, but they say he won't play again this afternoon. And
if my memory serves me correctly, this will be the 3rd game this season where that has happened with Baycott.
He played only 3 minutes at UNCW back in November due to that concussion you talked about. And then on December the 4th against Ohio State, limited to 7 minutes with a left ankle sprain. Dolezaj steps by the defender and puts it in.
That's a nice move by Dolezaj, but Dolezaj immediately turns and picks up his 4th foul, trying to stop Cole Anthony in transition. And these are the fouls that really drive Jim Boeheim nuts. As Dolezaj makes a great play off the pick and pop, the finish, but trying to get back in transition, fouls Anthony, and just like that, Mark Dolezaj with 4 fouls to try to play with for the remaining 16 and a half minutes of this game.
Boy, we just had a great battle inside for position between Garrison Brooks and Barama Sidibe, who was called for the foul. And that's his 3rd. So Syracuse's 2 primary bigs now have 4 and 3 fouls respectively for Dolezaj and Sidibe.
And interesting that Jim Boeheim is going to leave Dolezaj on the floor with those 4 fouls with so much time remaining here in this half.
Boeheim deflects the pass. Robinson tees it up. He's got it.
And we talked about his shooting struggles. 3 for 15 in the last 3 games from the three-point arc, coming back from injury. But now here to start the second half, his 2nd three-point field goal made as Brandon Robinson starting to find a rhythm.
Boeheim answers with a tough 2.
And speaking of rhythm, Buddy Boeheim in a great rhythm after returning from the ankle injury against Pitt on Wednesday night.
Again, trying to find Brooks inside. He's got the position, able to bank it in.
But if you're North Carolina, that's where you want to continue to go. Sidibe with 3 fouls, Dolezaj with 4. You want to give Garrison Brooks as many touches as you possibly can.
Sidibe, they say he never possessed the ball, so no double dribble, no travel.
And Sidibe really starting to become a factor off that screen and roll where teams are going to blitz the guards and try to take them out of it, as Cole Anthony now shooting the basketball confidently knocks down another 3.
4th made 3 for the Tar Heels here in the second half. When we're talking Elijah Hughes on the nice back cut off the feed from Dolezaj.
But that's why Dolezaj is so important. You're talking about 6'9", 6'10", their 4-man who can make passes like that. Why he's so integral to this offense and the defense of the team and keeping him on the floor. Speaking of important, right now Cole Anthony is feeling it. This is reminiscent of the Cole Anthony we saw go for a freshman record 34 points on opening night at home over Notre Dame, shooting the basketball like this from 3.
Young man out of Oak Hill Academy in Virginia. with
That's
17 points.
Don't go to the first school. You go to where he graduated from.
On this day, I'll give that to you.
Only because he told you that.
Exactly. Girard tries again, this time from the corner. Carolina with separation again. This is kind of how the first half went. But then North Carolina allowed Syracuse to creep back into it. Keeling with another three-point shot. UNC is on fire. 64-48 Tar Heels. ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Wendy's. Try a Big Bacon Classic today. Well, in the first half this afternoon, Carolina kind of shot like Carolina this year, but in the second half, they are a completely different team, Corey.
They really are moving the basketball extremely well around the perimeter and taking good shots, making good shots. 6 3-point field goals made by the Tar Heels to start the second half, and right now they've used that to build the 16-point lead.
And let's take a look at how Cole Anthony is staying ready, presented by Lowe.
Well, and one of the things for Cole Anthony, he loves to take the personal challenge. Joe Girard, the all-time leading scorer in New York State high school history. And, you know, of course, Cole Anthony's from the state of New York. So when you consider coming in and Cole Anthony's heard the talk about Joe Girard this year, Cole Anthony just now getting back into his groove after missing those 11 games, it's one of those games where you know that he's taking it personally, and you see it in his play thus far this afternoon.
Well, we've only got another week left in the regular season as the Orange try to get it to Dolezaj. And I think there is a tremendous race among the freshman class of the ACC to make the all-freshman team. I think off the long rebound, here come the Tar Heels. Keeling, no. And it's Boeheim who has it.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that will be the most difficult voting.
Right. So Vernon Carey's going to be the freshman of the year.
Oh, I can give you 4 definites. I can give you the whole 5. Now, honestly, if Cole Anthony's eligible.
And that's the thing too. We'll break that down when we come back to the Carrier Dome. Tar Heels up 64-48. Is the ACC on ESPN. Inside the Carrier Dome in Syracuse, we've got a blind resume of 3-star freshmen across the conference. Can you tell who each one is?
And each of these star freshmen has had a 30-point game on the season, but you look at the numbers, all similar from the field goal percentage as well as the 3-point field goal percentage. But yet, one's expectations much higher than the other two. And you would expect for people to say that 2 of these 3 have had a great freshman year, where you would say that the other maybe has not lived up to expectations. But when you look at the numbers and you see how difficult it is as a freshman, especially in this league, to be successful, it makes more sense as to what we talked about before, why it's going to be so difficult to build the ACC all-rookie team this year. But I can tell you right now, I've got 4 definites.
Well, I think there are as many as 10 legitimate candidates, and I'm not sure there are 4 hard and fast.
Okay. Well, let me give you my 4. My 4, of course, Vernon Carey, I think is a runaway favorite for ACC Rookie of the Year.
Yep.
So that's legitimate. And we got to look, Brandon Robinson actually calling for a sub. We talked about his ankle, and it looks as though he just turned that ankle once again. But back to this blind resume, when we look at the 3 different players, those 3 different freshmen, Cole Anthony with tremendous expectations, and you look at his numbers, the 6.2 rebounds per game in the middle, the 3.8 assists above the other players. But everyone would look at it and say, Landers Nolley's had a great freshman season.
Yep.
Joe Girard III has had a great freshman season. But you look at Anthony's numbers that are better, if not at least the same from a field goal percentage, and you consider the fact that he's averaging almost 20 points per game coming in, the expectations may have been too much for Cole Anthony to live up to, especially when you consider the injury.
Sure, it's all relative. Cole Anthony, as you know, as he comes up with the turnover, was number 2 in last year's ESPN 100, the number 2 recruit in the country. So expectations, of course, are going to be sky high. Dad played in the NBA, but everybody's known who is as a basketball player the last couple of years coming in, where the others, Landers Nolley last year was a red shirt in Blacksburg, so you kind of forget about him in terms of what kind of impact he might have. And then Joe Girard came out of Glens Falls as a prolific scorer, two-sport star, won a couple of state football championships in this building. But the reality is he was a three-star recruit, and so, like you say, you look at those numbers, they're pretty similar in a lot of ways, but you just view them from a different prism.
Well, and when you look at that team, and so for me, we talk Vernon Carey, he'll be on the team. Landers Nolley, I think, is a member of the all-rookie team in the ACC. I honestly believe that Pat Williams from Florida State, as Keeling knocks down another three-pointer, Patrick Williams will be another guy that is on that team. And so when you look at who fills it out, you've got Cole Anthony. Joe Girard is in the mix for that. And there's someone that I'm missing. I'm trying to think of it because I had four guys who were a definite to me.
Well, Justin Champagny of
That's
Pittsburgh
who it was. Justin Champagny
is who I would put on. Girard gets the role.
And I think Champagny's a lock.
And so do I. And I think Jay Heath at Boston College could wind up on that team.
But Jay Heath at Boston College, I believe, deserves a lot of credit for that team. But he's in the same boat as Joe Girard. If Cole Anthony's on that team, then those guys miss out.
Right.
So if Cole Anthony's eligible, you have to say that he's had the best freshman year of all of those players, regardless of record. The fact that he's missed 11 games and still averaging 20 points per game, 6 rebounds and 4 assists, that's pretty impressive for a freshman.
No doubt he would be leading the ACC if he had enough eligibility in terms of games played. But do you ding him for having missed 11 games as opposed to somebody who's going to go and answer the bell every single game? I would still put Cole on my all-freshman team. Girard, no. But some of the others, I don't know if Pat Williams is going to make it, although I think he might wind up ultimately being the best out of the entire class.
Wait. Hold on. I have a question.
Yeah.
I have questions now. You don't think that Pat Williams will make it when Pat Williams most likely will be the ACC Sixth Man of the Year?
Yeah, I think that's possible.
Well, Sidibe has been the guy on the interior for the Orange here, trying to find a way to get his team back in this game.
Well, Jimmy Fallon is ready for Champ Week. The late-night television host. Trying to entertain with the pep band, but somebody in the building not so happy. You are not the conductor, young man. Get out of here. Jimmy Fallon, one of the celebrity guests of one of the Syracuse donors, sitting courtside by the Syracuse bench.
But Jimmy is definitely more ingratiated into this game than anyone else, as North Carolina breaks the press easily. But oftentimes with pressure, all you want a team to do is take a quick shot. Syracuse gets what it wants out of that possession. And Hughes coming up with the rebound, Keeling fouling him 94 feet away from their own basket.
There you see Tom Brady, Julian Edelman, and Jimmy Fallon sitting courtside.
Edelman and Fallon taking on the Orange Spirit.
Yeah, TB not so much.
TB wants to stay neutral as he can right now. That's why he's wearing all black. He doesn't want to give off anything. Doesn't want anybody to say, oh, well, he's at Syracuse, so he's got to be going to Buffalo. We don't want any of that happening right now. He's trying to stay neutral.
Midway through the second half, Elijah Hughes, who has had a quiet game scoring the basketball, turns it over. You know what, let's finish up our all-freshman team discussion. So we talked about Vernon Carey, yes. We talked about some of the others. I also want to say Tyrese Radford of Virginia Tech doesn't get much love. He certainly should be in the conversation. And then two guys, David Johnson of Louisville and Isaiah Wong of Miami. To beat the buzzer again, Carolina stays high. Those two guys didn't have the opportunities early in the year, but they have been tremendous in recent weeks, and to me at least should get some consideration.
I believe there are 10 guys that won't make it that should get some consideration. I mean, that is going to be the toughest vote for the voters this year, because there's so many guys that are deserving and have had good freshman seasons, but yet you only have 5 spots.
Quincy Guerrier with his first two. And that's one of the beautiful things about college basketball. We've had the turnover, losing such star power out of the ACC from last year to this year, and so the league's been down. It seems to be restocked, that if this freshman class across the league can stay around for another couple of years, the ACC will be right back where it's been.
Well, I can tell you it's a few of those at the top that you won't see for a couple of years.
Right, but if you're talking 10, 11, 12, they're not all going.
That guy that keeps making threes, I don't think you're going to see him for a couple of years. Even though he's wearing 2 on his jersey, he is one and done.
Well, Cole Anthony has been lighting it up here in the second half. He has been very good. Underwent right knee surgery back in mid-December for a partially torn meniscus. Missed 11 games, and this is his 9th game back in the lineup.
And took a lot of unfair criticism when he came back because of his field goal percentage and his shot attempts. But one thing for certain, he was not in rhythm. He was not 100%. But Cole Anthony only knows one way to play, and that is full speed ahead. He's been very under control tonight, taking good shots, but he only understands to be aggressive. And that's what many NBA people love about him, is regardless of the noise around him, he's going to continue to be himself and try to will his team to a win. That hasn't happened a lot since he's been back. Only one win for them since he's been back in the lineup. But you can see this team is playing much better, and he's getting used to being back on the floor.
Sidibe out of the game, got a nice ovation. 17 points, 13 rebounds for the Orange Center.
And Sidibe playing his best basketball here late in the season. But we talked about the importance of this game for Syracuse. And right now, North Carolina is definitely playing the spoiler with a 14-point lead, 8 minutes remaining.
Second half, Carolina's made 8 of 10 from beyond the three-point line, while Syracuse has missed 7 out of 8. The Tar Heels well in control. ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is presented by 5-Hour Energy Shots, now in 2 great tropical flavors. And in part by Boost Mobile. Step up with Boost Mobile and get a super reliable, super fast network. Kevin, thank you. Our full day of college basketball is highlighted by these 2 big games. Up next, this one's a Sonic blockbuster, number 7 Duke taking on Florida State. And then we've got Michigan State and Maryland tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Both games are on ESPN and the ESPN app, so you can watch anywhere. And we see right there why Jimmy Fallon did not play for the College of St. Rose basketball team.
Well, and getting the rub down by Tom Brady, making sure he didn't tear a rotator cuff or something. He went all Brady-like, throwing the ball into the stands. And Jimmy Fallon, who laughed hysterically at the guy that took the half-court shot, probably shouldn't have done so, especially after his 3-point attempt landed in about the same spot.
Christian Keeling continuing his excellent play in recent weeks.
And Doug, we talked about the freshman, and Joe Girard III got off to a great start, scored 5 points in the first 3 minutes of this game, but hasn't scored since. And North Carolina's defense has locked up on Girard. And one of the things that Syracuse is doing, and I love it when Jim Boeheim does this, they're actually pressuring 94 feet. He normally uses this only when they're down big, but North Carolina's done a great job of handling the pressure, not turning it over. But quick shots are just as good as a turnover, and right now North Carolina being patient around the perimeter after breaking the pressure.
5 to shoot. Robinson. And a long rebound comes to Keeling.
But that crushes you right there. After you have a defensive possession where you spend 30 seconds guarding, and then you don't come up with the offensive rebound, Leaky Black catching it in the middle of the zone and getting the bucket. That's 40 seconds of defense that the Cuse played to only give up a bucket. And that can be demoralizing at times, especially when you're trying to mount a comeback.
Guerrier, the freshman from Quebec. Garrison Brooks quietly has had a really good game for North Carolina. Another double-double for him. Here he goes underneath for 2 more. Is he the most improved player in the ACC?
He's right there, but honestly, as a starter last year and having some big moments, I'm going to have to go with Moses Wright of Georgia Tech, even though Garrison Brooks has had a special year. But I honestly do believe that Garrison Brooks is a second-team All-ACC performer this season. He has been the guy for the Tar Heels.
Boeheim for 3. Give him 20. Kick ball. And once again, the stat line for Garrison Brooks is really impressive, Corey. 19 points on 8 of 12 shooting. He's made all 3 of his free throws, which has not always been the case this year. He's had some good games and not so good games. 13 rebounds, 4 assists.
And Garrison Brooks has been the rock for North Carolina. We've seen him dejected after many of these losses. He's played his heart out. Has 2 30-point games on the season. One against NC State, one against Georgia Tech. And again, he has continued to give them the production and shed the glasses early in the game.
3 minutes in.
We've seen him wearing the glasses for the past couple of weeks.
Well, he's had multiple corneal abrasions this year, and the goggles have come and gone.
Well, Christian Keeling is shooting the basketball like he got glasses 4 weeks ago, before games ago, because he has continued to shoot a hot basketball. He has tripled his production over the last 7 games in comparison to what he did for the first 21 games of this season.
Guerrier lays it in.
And one of the areas where North Carolina has struggled this year has been late game scenarios. They've given up double-digit leads in games 5 times in ACC play, and they've lost those games. So that's one of the areas, and I'm talking double-digit second-half leads.
Right.
And where they've had that here tonight. So right now the pressure trying to get them sped up a bit, but North Carolina doing a great job of handling it to this point.
Our NBA Sunday special comes to you from the Big Easy with LeBron James and the Western Conference leading Lakers taking on Zion Williamson and the Pelicans. Coverage tips with NBA Countdown at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific on ESPN and the ESPN app. Bryson Goodine, a freshman guard, into the game for Syracuse in place of Joe Girard. Boeheim.
A nice action by the Orange to get Boeheim a look in the middle of the painted area. But the one thing that North Carolina is doing is running the Orange off the three-point line. The Syracuse hasn't had much success at all from beyond the arc in this game. 4 for 19, my last check.
Roy Williams is used to having a team that puts points on the board, and I'll tell you what, this is now 4 consecutive halves where they've had 40 or more points. They had not done it more than consecutive halves until today.
Well, this has been one of the lowest scoring seasons in North Carolina basketball history. That 71 points per game is the lowest since 1981-82, where they happened to win a national championship, scoring 66.7 points per game. So, you know, but as you mentioned, that was under Dean Smith. The Roy Williams teams have always been high-scoring teams. The way this team has shot this year hasn't allowed them to be able to do that, but that hasn't been the case here tonight.
4 minutes remaining in regulation. Boeheim, air ball. Foul in the backcourt takes us to our under 4 media timeout. Carolina hoping not to allow another double-digit lead to slip away. Syracuse doing everything it can in its home finale to flip the script. Kev, thanks so much. Hey, I am humbled to be in your company, Corey, along with the other stars here in the Carrier Dome.
I'm sure Tom Brady and Jimmy Fallon are too.
There's the top 6 in the ACC standings as it stands right now, and as we set off the top, the door for Syracuse trying to get into the NCAA tournament as an at-large was maybe ajar today with no more wiggle room. But now the way it's looking, it appears that both Syracuse and North Carolina will head to Greensboro in 10 days, needing to win out to get into the field of 68.
Yeah, but with 3:42 remaining, I would like to say that there's still a chance for the Orange. This North Carolina team has struggled to finish out games all season long, and we'll see if they've grown from their recent success versus North Carolina State.
Well, that's a good start.
That definitely does help, getting the basketball inside to Garrison Brooks, who's able to finish through the contact and have the opportunity for the and one. But when you watch North Carolina this year, it's must-see TV, especially at the end of the games with leads, because they found every possible way to lose games. And right now with a 15-point lead with 3.5 remaining, Christian Keeling limping off. And
my goodness. Coach Williams again has to go to his bench as one of his players hobbles off the floor.
And that's the year it's been for the Tar Heels. When they get something going in a positive manner, there's always something to hold them back, and you see Keeling get another look. And not sure if he steps on Elijah Hughes' foot or what you see there, but it doesn't look like much. But barely putting pressure on it as he comes off the floor.
Elijah Hughes now with 15 points after the triple. Down to 3 minutes remaining. Sounded like contact. Brooks keeps working. Lost out of bounds to Syracuse.
.12-point game, 2:56 remaining. And right now, if you're North Carolina, does the thoughts of the past games creep into your mind? Or have they learned enough to be able to finish it out?
Sidibe now gets back up after a hard fall, and then the foul given by Hughes. To answer your question, maybe it was a rhetorical, Corey. I would say no, not yet, not at this point. Is Carolina thinking, uh-oh? They've been pretty well firmly in control, and I haven't seen that really slip here in the second half.
Okay, so you're basing this on what you've seen from their body language and their mannerisms in this game?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. And it would be defeatist for them to think otherwise.
But if you've lost 5 ACC games where you've had a double-digit lead in the second half, and I think back specifically to where the Virginia game where they lose on a last-second shot by Thomas Walter Tenzai, and then you have the shot by Nate Laszewski versus Notre Dame.
Right.
You have the miracle by the Duke Blue Devils where Trey Jones is able to throw the basketball off the rim perfectly and get it back and make a shot into overtime, and then you lose that game. So when you take all that in consideration, that's not something that creeps into the mind of these players on the floor
as
it moves forward.
It's a 14-point game with 2.5 minutes to go. Those were all much tighter at this point. It would have to get down to a 7 or 8 point game for them to start thinking about it.
Okay.
I think.
Well, I mean, and honestly, for North Carolina, that's a great thing, and I'm glad that you give them that much credit.
Well, they've shown no signs of distress in the second half, making 59% of their shots from the floor. Sports Center tonight after Arizona UCLA with Nabil Kareem and Zubin Mahenti. They'll have a James Harden, Jason Tatum breakdown. Plus, their matchup in January ended with a brawl. Kansas and Kansas State squaring off again today, this time in Manhattan. And D lineman and linebacker coverage at the NFL Combine. Sports Center after Pac-12 Hoops on ESPN and the ESPN app. Crowd wanted a foul in the backcourt. Gary A back up and defending for the Orange. Tar Heels in no hurry. Now they attack. Brooks will go to the line for 2. Very nicely done for UNC.
And one of the reasons why the crowd here got excited as Dolezaj fouls out of this game was a play in the backcourt as Cole Anthony comes off the screen, and you see Justin Pierce setting a legal screen in place. No reason for a foul to be called on that possession.
Dolezaj hearing from his Hall of Fame head coach after fouling out. Brooks in the win against NC State on Tuesday was 14 for 16 from the line, and he said he kept saying in my head, thinking about my little brother Justin's name when I shot the ball because he's so cool under pressure. Wonder if he's doing the same thing here again this afternoon.
Well, if it ain't broke, you don't fix it.
Right.
So I'm pretty certain it is. And when you see the basketball go through the hoop as confidently as it does right now with Garrison Brooks at the free throw line, I'm sure he has to have Justin on the brain.
2 minutes to go. Hughes on the switch, drives on Brooks. One and done for Syracuse. Another rebound for North Carolina.
And right now, Cole Anthony handling the basketball masterfully here at the end of this game. And part of the reason why you feel as though Phil is confident right now, and this is the way he used to do it for my guy, Terrence Munch Williams of the PSA Cardinals. Tuning in, checking this out.
And you know what? I bet you what factors into my thoughts that we had a couple of minutes ago started this morning at 10 a.m. at shoot-around. Just a sense of calm and a good feel about this team that I wouldn't think those negative thoughts would have started creeping in at that point of the game.
Well, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they do have a win to their credit with the NC State game. Up until that point, they hadn't won any of those games. And so when you actually get over the hump and win that game and handle the possessions the right way at the end to be able to finish it off, that gives you confidence coming into this building.
Corey, this building has been here for 4 decades, and the roof has been an iconic symbol of the city skyline of Syracuse. But this is the last men's basketball game that will have that roof above it. Because after the women's game is played tomorrow, the dome will be closed down until September to be able to put a new roof on. The building was built originally back in 1979 in the footprint of old Archbold Stadium here on campus. This is a rendering of what it will look like by the fall. And so we'll no longer have the air-supported bubble above us. It will be a hard, solid roof where they will hang a scoreboard, a video board from the center of it, which they've never been able to do here in the air-supported roof. Talked to Coach Boeheim at practice yesterday about that. He didn't seem to think it was going to be that big of a deal in terms of his feel next November when he comes back into the building for the next time to play a game. Court's going to be roughly the same. I mean, the sound system will change, the lighting will change, but by and large, he feels like, other than the roof, it's going to feel like the same place.
Well, it's going to be interesting, of course, coming in here, because one of the things you see is opposing teams come in, and one of the first things for freshmen is they look around at this building, which they've heard so much about and many have never played in, and they're in awe of the roof. So it's going to be interesting to see people's reactions to it in seasons to come when the roof no longer remains.
Hughes gives up the foul that will send Brooks back to the free throw line. And this roof, when it was put on in the late 70s and then opened in 1980, was one of a number in North America, but there are no more like this anymore. Minneapolis doesn't have it anymore. Vancouver doesn't have it anymore. So they're going to keep up with the times. We haven't mentioned that this is senior day today, and so there is one senior for Syracuse, a walk-on who's going to get his chance to play. His name is Sean Belby. He's from Brick, New Jersey. He was a prolific scorer at Christian Brothers Academy down the shore, and he's a legacy. His older brother, Kevin Belby, played at Syracuse for Coach Boeheim, and you might remember that name because he's the general manager for Boeheim's Army in the summertime that competes in the basketball tournament at TBT. So that's Sean Belby's older brother, and I have seen him in practice. He can shoot. If he gets an open look, he very likely might knock it down.
And speaking of can shoot, Cole Anthony and Joe Girard III exchanging hugs as Girard III went out of the game, and now Cole Anthony checks out of the game. The two freshman point guards. Was a lopsided battle in this one. All in favor of Cole Anthony, who's maybe put together his best performance since returning from injury. 7 for 10 from beyond the three-point arc, and 2 of those were desperation threes here in the second half at the end of the shot clock. So shooting the basketball extremely well here today, and one of the reasons why this may be the most dangerous 15 seed ever in a conference tournament.
Sidibe, the only scholarship player on the floor for Syracuse. Brendan Paul misses the 3. KJ Smith off the bench for the first time with the basketball. Final possession if the Tar Heels want. Likely won't put it up, and this will do it. As North Carolina came in and really shot the lights out in the second half in particular. Roy Williams' club wins its second consecutive game, and it tells you what, Corey, when they get to Greensboro, they're going to be dangerous.
They are going to be dangerous, and they will have their support. Believe that.
Our final score, North Carolina 92, Syracuse 79.